Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Is that all you got?
Let's begin now.
What up? Oh, for sure.
Hello,
everybody. How are you on this glorious Friday evening? I hope you're all well. I hope you're all okay, and I hope you're happy that we've made it through till Friday. Yeah, we haven't all perished in a nuclear war yet, so that's something to be thankful for, isn't it? Now, I'm live right now across multiple platforms. I'm on YouTube and Rockfin and Rumble and Twitter, and over here I'm also on TikTok as well. Now, the TikTok people, you can only see a green screen behind me. Elsewhere, there'll be obviously graphics and everything behind me, but you should be able to get the gist of what I'm saying, even though you can't really see what's behind me and the evidence of what I'm saying. But it should be okay. You should be able to understand what I'm talking about. Hey, everybody in the chat, how are you? Hi, Craig. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Argum. There's a theme tonight. The theme across, I've probably got about 5 or 6 stories that I want to do for you. The theme tonight is misinformation, because there's a hell of a lot of it right now. There has been quite a lot over the last few years, to be honest. It's one of the reasons why I got into this, because I could see that we were being lied to by the legacy and mainstream media. Hopefully that's a bit better and you can hear me a bit better. Okay. So most of the misinformation that we've seen over the last few years hasn't been put out by the likes of Alex Jones and people like myself in independent media or online. Most of the misinformation, I would say, that is out there is government mandated misinformation or disinformation, if you like, sent out there to try and muddy the waters, so nobody really knows what the truth is on any one subject. And it's all been done. The government aren't doing it themselves, of course. That would cause a massive reaction from the general public, especially over in America, where they have something called the Second Amendment, which protects free speech, apparently. But less said about that, the better. You don't seem to want to talk about the Constitution, but not abide by it over in America. Anyway, it's all been done through corporations, this free speech is, because now the corporations are social media companies, companies that I'm on right now. Excuse me. Platforms I'm on right now. And people like myself are being silenced. You're seeing it with my friends in America and in the UK from RT, who have had all of their work just scrubbed from the internet. Great journalists like Chris Hedges, of course, who couldn't find a job on MSNBC and CNN or any of the legacy media or in the New York Times. New York Times didn't want him. He ended up having to go to RT because he was so anti, establishment and so good at his job in holding power to account. We're being silenced, and people like myself, if we're being scrubbed off the internet, and all of our videos get taken down and we face sanction, etc. And now the governments have made it so we can't tell you the truth. The people who do know what's going on, who do pay attention to these things and can see, what is going on and aren't blinded by the woods for seeing the trees. We can't tell you what the truth is because they're literally silencing our voices. And obviously this is all being done to comply with whatever the government want you to comply with, whether that be what you say and what you think and what your thoughts are. This is the reason we've got journalists. We've got journalists because politicians and the powerful lie to us. They lie to us all the time, and they have done all the way throughout history. This is why we have journalists. This is why journalists are known as the fourth estate. You've got 3 estates of power, and then the fourth estate, that's the journalism, the ranks of journalism, who are meant to hold power to account and inform the public. Unfortunately, they don't do that anymore. At least our legacy media don't. The people in the media with the power don't do that. And they haven't for quite some time. What they now do is protect power. They're now government's public relations. That's pretty much all they are now. They're PR to the powerful. For instance, when was the last time you saw a journalist ask a question of a politician or somebody in power that was a good question, and B, the politician actually answered, or the person on the other end answer? They don't even answer questions anymore, do they? You ask them a question and they say, well, what we're saying is, no, you didn't answer the question. And they get away with that because our journalists have abdicated their duties to the fourth estate, both in the UK and in the US, I would say. All they do now is really spread misinformation for the powerful and those in government. How often do you see a headline saying that a government official said this, or somebody from within the NSA or within the intelligence community said this, an unnamed person, and it's never checked, it's just put out there as if it's absolutely true without the basic of journalism checking, the sources and etc. But as I've said quite often over the last few years, propaganda and misinformation is only really half the story, because what's put out there, yes, that's propaganda, but also a key aspect of propaganda is not telling you the full truth and only telling you half the story, only telling the public half the story. And obviously, if you select certain things within a story and certain points, and you only present those, and you don't present the whole story to whoever you're telling that story to, you can pretty much paint whatever picture you want to paint. And this is what the journalists do now. I've said before, if you only hear the second half of Cinderella, Prince Charming is nothing but a weirdo with a foot fetish. And this, of course, is what is happening right now with the media. And that's why people like me have stepped in to try and fill the void and fill the role that our fourth estate, the so-called journalists in this country and in the West, have abdicated. That's why I've done this. It's why many people like myself have done it. But now, unfortunately, if you've seen the videos I've put out on TikTok today, they're shutting me up. They've already shut me up on YouTube, as we know. I can go live on YouTube as I am right now, but they won't show my video to any new subscriber, just my existing subscribers. I've been shadow banned, or whatever you call it, on YouTube for quite some time, and we know why, of course. There's no room, it seems, for truth on the internet, certainly on social media platforms at the moment, and that's what they're obviously trying to do. This is by design, because if you can manipulate what information people see, if you can manipulate what information a person can see and what they can't see, you can pretty much get that person or a nation of people to believe almost anything you want. And we're seeing that play out right now. And tonight, I'm going to show you a little bit. I'm going to try and show you a little bit of how they're doing it. And instances where it's clear that what they're doing, it's clear what they're doing, and it's clear why. So, go to card. Now remember, this we're coming this is in an era right now where I've said there's a lot of information, misinformation out there, but also a big part of propaganda is what you don't hear. And of course, this story, which was around the election time, the Hunter Biden laptop story, that was hidden from view. Do you remember? They wouldn't show this. It was banned on Twitter. You couldn't even put a link to the Hunter Biden laptop story in your Twitter account or on Facebook. They banned it. They said it was Russian misinformation. Do you remember? Well, now, finally, this week, they've finally come around, the New York Times have, and they've admitted, oh no, that story is actually true. It's confirmed. That is Hunter's laptop. It's not Russian disinformation at all. It was Hunter Biden's laptop. This is from the New York Post. It says a comprehensive report about the ongoing federal probe into Hunter Biden's tax filings published by the New York Times on Wednesday night confirmed the existence of the first son's infamous laptop. This is quite a U-turn, isn't it? But it's not the first one that the legacy media have had to U-turn on in the last few weeks. Obviously, they've had to U-turn on massive amounts of stories that they've done on Russiagate, which I've got many videos on my channels. You should go and watch them if you want the actual truth. The article continues. In October 2020, the Post exclusively reported on the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop that he ditched at a Delaware repair shop in April 2019. The laptop's hard drive contained a trove of emails, text messages, photos, and financial documents between Hunter Biden, his family, and business associates, detailing how the president's son used his political leverage in his overseas business dealings. The repair shop owner reported the laptop to the FBI, which seized the device and its hard drive. As part of their investigation into Hunter Biden, the Times reports federal prosecutors have looked into emails between the first son and his former business associates that were recovered from the laptop. This is a story that was suppressed. It was Russian misinformation, do you remember? And this was right before the election. Right before the 2020 election. If this made it into the mainstream, this story, could it have been a different scenario, do you think? Could it have been that Trump would have won instead of Biden? Who knows, but you can certainly say that this was a story that was suppressed for political reasons and political gain. But it's not just limiting the information that comes out that propagandists in the media concentrate on. It's also putting out misinformation out there and selective information to get people to infer whatever picture it is intelligence services and the powerful want to paint. For instance, they'll do a lot of work with so-called NGOs. NGOs are a non-governmental organisation, so they call them. There are many NGOs that do great work. There's no doubt about that. But governments around the world, Western governments particularly, now use so-called NGOs as cutouts to do whatever it is that they want to do in a certain country. Non-governmental organisations. I'm talking about organisations like, just off the top of my head, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. That sounds like an incredible organisation that does fantastic work, doesn't it? Sounds like it's some sort of Red Cross. Red Crescent, Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is incredible, isn't it? I mean, whenever a alleged human rights violation went on over in Syria, or anything went on over in Syria during the Operation Timber Sycamore and later with the dirty war in Syria that we were waging on them, it was always the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights that was reporting whatever the death toll was and who was responsible. And all of the major newspapers, not just in this country but abroad as well, used this source, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, this supposed non-governmental organisation. But when you scratch the surface of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, you find out it's just one person, not a big organisation. It's one guy, a Syrian, yes, but not in Syria. He's in Coventry, about 35 miles down the road from me. He's a Syrian who was jailed, I think twice, and was about to face charges of fraud for a third time in Syria when he fled Syria to the UK, upon which, when he got here, some time afterwards, the UK government gave him, I think, £197,000 for, quote, equipment, that's taxpayer money. And then he set up this Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, taking phone calls. And that is who the media get all their information from. You can see this is, I mean, I'm not saying that he's not working very hard. And I'm not saying that he's not, a good actor. He very well could be. But there's no way a geezer in Coventry should be the entire Western world's, well, Bible on human rights violations in Syria. So you can see how NGOs are used to manipulate the public into believing whatever it is that they want to believe in. This is often done through organisations like the National Endowment for Democracy, which is sort of a CIA cutout. I'll get to that in a minute. And other cutouts like it that are funding, media outlets, new media outlets. You'll see a lot of new media outlets spring up in these new countries. This is something that Western organisations and Western intelligence do all the time in countries like Venezuela and etc. that they want to would rather a pro-American dictator be in there than a pro-socialist president like Maduro. So the media is a way that Western intelligence services try and change people's minds through propaganda as well. And in Ukraine, it's no different. Because you remember, if you should know this, if you watch the legacy media, though you don't, because there's a lot of, you'll hear the legacy media will say stuff like, Ukraine is a democracy and we need to save this democracy. Well, do democracies ban media outlets? And I'm not talking about RT here, because they were fine for years until this war broke out. I'm not talking about since the war broke out, although this has been going since 2014, if you ask me. Zelensky, he's a puppet. The Ukrainian president, he banned pro-Russian media when he won his presidency. He banned 3 outlets. This is from Al Jazeera. At the time, in a move hailed by pro-Western Ukrainians, President Vladimir Zelensky, he's a puppet, unplugged 3 television networks overnight that he said spread Kremlin-funded propaganda and served as a bullhorn of an increasingly popular pro-Moscow party. That was at the time. He banned 3 outlets that they said were pro-Russian. Now, they for sure weren't favourable to Zelensky, but I have heard that previous Ukrainian presidents, going back decades, were very critical of these media outlets, but those so-called dictators let those media outlets carry on. It was only when Zelensky came, he's a puppet, it's only when Zelensky came in that they banned these outlets. So-called liberals don't do that, do they? So-called democracies don't do that. But Ukraine did. And then, all of a sudden, other cutouts and other media outlets start taking the place on the airwaves. Outlets like, you may have seen them if you're on Twitter, the Kyiv Independent, Kyiv, Kyiv, not Kiev. The Kyiv Independent, it's a new organisation that's just popped up. It was covered in this article by Pedro Gonzalez in Human Events, and I just want to give you, just want to read to you what he wrote, because it'll give you an idea as to what these cutouts, these intelligence cutouts, masquerading as, media outlets, give you an idea as to who really is behind them. It says this: the Western intelligence apparatus, whatever you want to say that word, has been busy in Ukraine with financing and collaboration through various non-governmental organizations. It won the information war with the help of Ukrainian media before Russia ever fired a shot in February. Even the country's newest publications, like the Kyiv Independent, have received support and funding from institutions associated with the CIA. Are you surprised? I was really surprised that all of a sudden I started getting the Kyiv Independent in my feed on Twitter with these promoted tweets. It was really, now I understand why. The article carries on. In most cases, these outlets have propagandized to the beat of the West war drums rather than inform the public. Since the Independent launched last November, it has amassed nearly 2 million followers. I think I'm on 6,000 and I've been doing it for 10 years. I think the last 4 years just doing the same thing, media. They've got 2 million followers, I got 6,000. Go figure. 2 million followers and became a main artery of information in the war. Far from being objective, its writers tend to snap at those who contradict their narratives. Ilya Ponomarenko, the Independent's defense reporter, even declared himself brothers in arms with the Azov Battalion, a unit known for committing war crimes against civilians in eastern Ukraine. According to journalist Michael Tracy, Ponomarenko amassed almost 2 million followers in less than 2 weeks. Wow. I mean, you've got to be propped up for that to happen, haven't you? Just immediately like that, 2 million. That kind of growth is hard and impressive, but the Independent also has some special connections. The publication has a growing subscriber base today, but according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, the CPJ, it was created with an emergency grant from the European Endowment for Democracy. Remember I said the National Endowment for Democracy is the CIA's cutout? Well, this one is the European Endowment for Democracy. That's who has been funding it with an emergency grant, a spin-off of the NED it is. On the surface, the NED, of course, is one of these NGOs. It's a non-governmental organisation that promotes civil society worldwide by, amongst other things, sponsoring and providing training for journalists and activists directly or indirectly. So it seems like a good organisation, above board, but the reality, however, is different, Gonzalez said. Here's ProPublica's characterisation. Quote, the National Endowment for Democracy was established by Congress, in effect, to take over the CIA's covert propaganda efforts. But, unlike the CIA, the NED promotes US policy and interests openly. The NED's co-founder, Alan Weinstein, admitted as much. He said, quote, a lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA, he said in an interview with the Washington Post. So you can see this is what the intelligence agencies are doing. They are infiltrating these. I mean, was it Operation Mockingbird? We can't talk about that on TikTok. Even got a video banned for that. Oh, ridiculous. But this article continues. The biggest difference, this ex-CIA guy says, the biggest difference is that when such activities are done overtly, the flap potential, which is, the ability to embarrass or embroil the CIA in controversy, is close to zero because there's that degree of separation between the CIA and the NED. It's like the mafia. There's a lot of buffers. There's a lot of buffers in between. Don Corleone and his capos. Weinstein said that he recalled in 1967 Ramparts magazine humiliated the CIA by exposing that it had turned the National Student Association's international activities into an arm of the United States foreign policy through undercover financing and secret collaboration. Now, openness is its own protection, as Weinstein put it. Now, the NED do this out in the open, and the European Endowment for Democracy are now doing the same with outlets like the Kyiv Independent. This is propaganda. They're lying to you. They may not be overtly outright lying to you, but they're certainly withholding, information from you so that you infer the picture of things that they want you to infer, however far from reality that might be. The article continues. Put simply, the NED uses democracy movements to bring down foreign governments into harmony with Washington interests. How that looks in practice takes different forms, including regime change, but a constant is formulating and managing narratives, which is why the NED has long funded media and activist groups. Great article. This is Caitlin Johnston on Twitter. She says the Kyiv Independent also receives funding from the Canadian government. Quoting Rupa Subramanya in December 2021, Globe and Mail reported the Canadian government supported the Kyiv Independent with a grant of 200,000 Canada dollars, I assume that is. It replaces the Kiev Post allegedly shut down through pressure from Zelensky, as their coverage of his government was tarnishing his liberal image broad. That's what Rupert said. I'm not making that charge. So you can see it's happening right now in Ukraine with these cutouts, this Kiev Independent. This is funded by power. It's funded by, you know, the EU. It's funded by CIA, GCHQ. This is what these cutouts are funding. It's narrative management is what it is. It doesn't mean that you're getting the truth about anything. What it means is that you're only getting whatever approved official lines of narrative have been allowed and are allowed. And if you go against that, you get your account shut down. You know, if we go back to COVID, how many things, in ivermectin, for instance, you couldn't even talk. You couldn't even mention ivermectin. 18 months ago on YouTube, you would have your account taken off you. But now we find out, it's been prescribed all over the world for it, and there was a study at the moment. We don't know how effective it is, but it is a treatment that people are using. But you lost your account for that. For even mentioning the word 18 months ago. And there are plenty of other things too with regards to COVID that we couldn't say that now, well, we can. I mean, look at Wuhan. Remember, we couldn't even talk about a lab leak theory. Now it's kind of accepted that is a viable, gotta be careful with my words, is a viable theory. Pretty soon, those avenues, if we don't fight back against it, are all you're going to be able to hear from. You need to be very, very careful of anything coming out, of any news coming out of Ukraine from any sources. Not just Russia, the West too. All of your minds, whether it be in the West or in Russia or Ukraine, all of your minds are being manipulated to try and get you on board with whatever the powerful have in store for Ukraine and Ukrainians. And I can guarantee you this, none of the people involved in this care a crap about Ukrainians or Ukraine. This is all about power. For many reasons, as I've discussed in the past. And you're only getting shown one side of things, whether you are in Russia right now or whether you are in the West. And if you're getting any information from articles like the Kiev Independent, then you need to question them, sure. You're being lied to. Minds are being manipulated. And it's disgusting. Hi everybody. Let's just check the just want to check the TikTok comments, everybody. Hi TikTok, how are you? Haven't we learned anything from Iraq, says official sword? No, obviously not. Obviously not. Excellent. Thanks for joining me, everybody. What's the next I want to talk about? Okay. I need to sip on my. So, for you on TikTok, I had a ban for a week on TikTok. I was suspended for a week for integrity and authenticity. Yeah, they say that I broke rules of integrity and authenticity. TikTok say that I misled them by videos, in several videos. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's curious, isn't it? People like me are getting silenced on TikTok, whereas other people, well, they're getting promoted and pushed up. And I, for one, don't think it's fair. This is from Fox Business, and there's lots of people that have been talking about this over the last 24 hours, and rightly so, because the White House has drafted TikTok stars to blame Putin for rising gas prices. Yeah, they've enlisted TikTok stars to push their propaganda on innocent teens, supposedly. It's the ways that they've got to manipulate minds right now. It's incredible. Meanwhile, people like me just get screwed, don't they? It's really not fair. This is from Michael Rees. The Biden administration tapped teenage TikTok influencers last week to coordinate messaging on Russia's invasion of Ukraine and blame Vladimir Putin for rising gas prices. For those of you in the UK, gas prices, they mean in America, they mean petrol. Yes, they call a liquid gas America. Yes, I know it's gasoline. Joke. According to a recording of a call between White House officials and the social media stars, there was about 30 of them apparently. Days later, after this Zoom call, Ellie Zeiler, an 18-year-old with more than 10 million followers on TikTok, posted a video in which she aimed to answer the question, quote, "Why is gas so expensive?" Because 18-year-old Ellie Zeiler is the person you need to go to find that out. Why is gas so expensive, and why is the United States inflation rate at a 4-time decade high? She begins the video. I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said. Do you want to see that video, everyone? Of course you do. I've got it here. Take a look at this.
Why is gas?
Here's Ellie. 10 million followers she's got. Wow, she's pretty, isn't she? Wow. Didn't have girls like that when I was 18.
Why is gas so expensive, and why is the United States inflation rate at a 4-time decade high? I had the opportunity to ask the White House why gas down the street is $7, and here's what they said. The obvious reason: we're getting out of a 2-year pandemic. When use goes up, price goes up. But the call was predominantly about Ukraine and Russia, so how does that relate? Russia is one of the top 3 producers of oil, and it is actually their #1 revenue source. Now, with Putin starting this horrific fight between Ukraine and Russia, nobody wants to work with him and do an international trade.
Yeah, because Putin started it, and it's all Putin. There's no other reason whatsoever, is there, Ellie? Eh?
So, with people being scared of war and limited resources, prices are bound to go up as well. For the people who can't pay $7 for a gallon of gas, there's an app called Gas Buddy that shows you the cheapest gas near you, as well as a link in my bio to donate to the misplaced refugees of Ukraine.
So, there you go. She's repeated what the White House have told her, and to be fair there, she's like, well, you know, what's that got to do with Russia and, you know, Ukraine? What's that got to do with it when they were talking about when they replied with COVID? So at least, you know, she said, well, part of the answer they gave me was crap. But this is who the government are enlisting the help of, while other people get banned because they are telling you, well, different to what Ellie just told you. This guy is another person who was on that Zoom call, and he got to ask a question too. Listen to this guy. This is quite good.
Just got off of a Zoom call with the White House about the situation in Ukraine. A number of other content creators in social media and myself were invited to this event, which was on background, meaning that we couldn't record or take pictures, but we can discuss what we learned from it. Now, there was definitely a lot discussed, but in this video, I'm going to go over the specific question that I got to ask, the answer to it, and my thoughts on their response. And as a quick piece of context, a lot of the people there ask questions based off of the content they create and what they feel their audience might want to know. So that informs the question that I personally asked. So this was my question. Many people from marginalized communities in the United States have become dejected regarding the situation because there's an imbalance of coverage and assistance given to the Ukraine-Russia crisis compared to other occupations, invasions, and attacks throughout the world, some of which have U.S. involvement. What incentivizes these Americans to be in strong support of the U.S., giving high levels of attention and direct aid against the Russian invasion, as we feel there isn't enough attention on related issues in other places throughout the world and right here in the United States?
Isn't that great? That's fantastic. He's asked a question there that the media should be asking, right? I mean, all of those people in the White House press room, all of that time, haven't asked anything like this. Why are you paying so much attention to Ukraine? Why aren't you paying attention to the other wars around the world? And also, why is what Putin's doing so bad when you've been doing it? That's essentially what he's asked there, isn't it? I think that's brilliant. Don't you?
First, I'll try to give a direct summary of what they said, which can be divided into 4 different points. According to them, one reason that this crisis is specifically notable is because of the size of the invasion, which is the largest since World War II. Second, they acknowledge that this coverage imbalance exists for crises throughout the world and encourage us as content creators to use our platforms to highlight different issues as they arise, especially when mainstream media fails to do so.
So what they're saying is, okay, yeah, you as content creators, you talk about the stuff that the mainstream media aren't talking about. So what they're saying, what the White House is saying to people like me is keep doing it. You're like, and I've listened to that call, by the way. At the beginning of it, Jen Psaki, who's the White House press officer, press spokesperson, she came on and she was like, I jumped into this. I bullied my way into this. I wanted to talk to you guys and tell you how wonderful you are. You're great. Really? So why am I getting banned then? Why do I keep getting suspended for doing what you say you're happy we're doing or I'm doing? Well, you're not, are you? You're only happy when people toe the line and repeat propaganda.
Third, they said that just because something isn't getting mainstream coverage in media doesn't mean that the United States isn't giving aid, whether that be monetary, humanitarian, or military aid.
So what he's saying here is, listen, I know the United States breaks a lot of people's legs, but some of those people, we send them to a doctor. And some of those people, we send a hamper to them to tell them to get better. That's essentially what he's saying.
Aid to other issues throughout the globe. And last, they said that they hope that this crisis at least raises the public consciousness around geopolitical issues throughout the world, and that even though Americans may not be proud of other things the United States has done globally, that they hope that we can look back on this moment and see how the United States rallied the West to stand up against Russia and be proud of that. And once again, that's what they said.
That's what they said. So do you think he believes them there? Do you think he believes them there that, you know, that the world is going to rally behind America because they're doing so much good here? Well, I think not. Well done, that guy. Well done, him. At least he asked a better question than the media. But there you go. Even TikTok influencers ask better questions than the White House press room. Again, this is more manipulation and propaganda. Again, this is more ways that the powerful in governments are now getting corporations like TikTok and YouTube and Twitter to do the censoring for them. This is censorship by corporations. There's a word, there's an expression for what that is when the governments get corporations to shut people up, and the governments get corporations to shut up free speech, and the governments get corporations to make sure the public are only aware of certain facts. You know, the facts are hidden. It's called corporate fascism. And that's what they're doing right now. And it's in the open, and seemingly nobody's got a problem with it, apart from people like me and you who watch me. It's incredibly worrying. I get banned with no recourse whatsoever for reporting. I mean, I got banned for reporting on original documents from Pfizer and explaining to everybody what was in those documents and saying to them, obviously, don't fearmonger on this. Don't be alarmist, but we need a conversation. They banned me for a week. Because I'm not talking about the things that the powerful want me to talk about. Therefore, I'm not welcome. This is manipulation. I'm going to show the video. Show my video. Because I know that people on YouTube, you won't believe this. I mean, I got banned and I tried to appeal the ban, and this is what happened. This is the response from TikTok I got. And this, by the way, this response is still a better response than I would get from YouTube. On YouTube, if I've got a complaint about anything, I don't even get an email. They won't even respond to an email. At least on this, I got some sort of response, even if it was just I've asked for an appeal on. It's terrible. Wind this to the beginning. Just take a listen to this. Just take a listen to this customer service from TikTok. It's not a complaint video. I'm not whinging about being banned, but I just want to show you that this is the level of their customer service. Take a look. Hi everyone, I just want to explain why it is I think I'm going to get banned from this platform, and it's inevitable that I'm going to get banned. TikTok keep taking down videos that I do, saying that it breaks the rule of integrity and authenticity. They say that I'm intentionally trying to mislead you. As you can see here, I'm trying to ask TikTok why it is that they are not looking at the videos that I'm appealing. I've got 3 videos outstanding that I've asked for an appeal on that they just haven't even looked at, and one of them is from January. Now, because of this, those videos are strikes against me. They might not be. This is why I keep getting suspended. Now, TikTok responded to that, well, look, with your account will remain permanently banned due to a violation of our guidelines. They basically said, yeah, I'm permanently banned. You know, I asked them, are they going to review the 3 videos? And they respond with, please provide with your username. I'm like, well, if you haven't got my username, how can you say I'm permanently banned? You know, something is not adding up here, is it? They then come back to that with, your account has no current violations. Well, no, because by the time they'd responded, the week's suspension had been lifted. So again, I ask, there are 3 videos that have been taken down that I've appealed. You haven't looked at those videos at all. Can you please look at them? And they responded with this, an explanation of how to appeal, which I've already done. My complaint is they're ignoring the appeals and just keep suspending me and banning me for breaking rules of integrity and authenticity. I understand that TikTok have got a problem here in moderating content en masse. But I just want people to understand that this is why I'm going to get taken down. It's not because I'm giving you anything that's factually incorrect. It's not. It's literally just that TikTok do not even understand what I'm asking them. And it's so frustrating because I love this little app. It's fantastic. But how can I use it if I can't talk to you honestly about facts with evidence behind me? That's what I'm getting banned for, and I'm getting no response from them, as you can see. Maybe if you emailed them and said, you know, we need this guy, maybe that would change their mind. Who knows? In the meantime, though, go to my website, click the link in my bio page, to my website and sign up to my mailing list. And when I go live in future, wherever that is, if TikTok do ban me, you'll get a notification. All right. Thanks very much for all your support and all your kind words, everybody. I do appreciate it. So there you go. As you can see, I'm getting no sense from TikTok, from their support whatsoever. It's like we're talking a different language. Some people have said that it's like they're doing it on purpose. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just a case that they can't moderate en masse. And, you know, unless you're a massive account or have got a blue tick to your name, it's like they don't want to know. And they certainly don't want people like me on their platform causing them headaches. It's a shame. It really is. All people like me want is a level playing field. That's really all we need. Because we know that if we've got a level playing field, people will listen to us. Because people know right now that they're being lied to when they switch on the media. They know it. And it's a shame that these social media companies, it's a shame that TikTok are they're going to end up doing the same thing that YouTube have done. Exactly the same thing. And they're going to end up being architects of their own demise as a result. They've just rolled out 10-minute videos on TikTok. I haven't done one yet. What's the point? They're going to ban me. As you can see, they're not even looking at what I'm saying to them. I mean, you have got to ask, have you? Is it on purpose? Is it on purpose because I'm not one of those TikTok influencers who are just going to repeat what the government roll out to them without any, you know, do you think that in that our Zoom call, do you think the petrodollar was mentioned once or Nord Stream 2? People like me are being shut up. And is it any wonder why? This is Loki on Twitter. He says this: the White House is briefing TikTok users about Ukraine. It is also alarming that the current live stream policy manager for Europe, Middle East and Africa at TikTok. The current live stream policy manager for Europe, the Middle East and Africa at TikTok, Greg Anderson is his name, worked in psychological operations at NATO. Doesn't sound good, does it? For the future of free speech. Doesn't sound good at all. He continues with this, does Loki, the global lead on trust and safety at TikTok, Chris Roberts, is a former senior director of technology policy at the Albright Stonebridge Group. And if you don't know what the Albright Stonebridge Group is, Madeleine Albright, yes, the foreign secretary or Secretary of State, whatever you want to call the America's version of it, in the Iraq War, who starved 500,000 kids to death in Iraq and then said it was worth it. That Madeleine Albright. And then he finishes that off with Alexander Corbale is simultaneously content policy lead. I'll start that again. Alexander Corbale is simultaneously content policy lead at TikTok and the president of the NATO Association of Canada. A free society is not shaped like this, is it? If you've got people from NATO and the Madeleine Albright Centre in your senior positions at this amazing social media platform, what sort of speech do you think is going to be allowed on there? What sort of narrative do you think is going to be allowed? Do you think people like me are going to be frustrated by that sort of customer service and customer support that I've showed you forever? I think it's got a good chance, don't you? It's just such a shame because that little app, TikTok, this little app, it's lovely. I love it. It's fantastic. Look, the people there are fantastic and they're thirsty for information, especially the young kids. But they're just going to get propagandized and misinformed because they're going to make sure that people like me are either throttled to hell like has happened on other platforms over the last few years, or completely banned and kicked off it. Certainly seems like that's going to be the case. They're not even reviewing my appeals, and then, as you can see, just replying with nonsensical replies when I ask simple questions. Doesn't sound good, does it? Such a shame. Such a shame. But hey, at least that's better than YouTube. You see, on YouTube, you can't even get an email to complain. And it's also so important why you support independent media, because otherwise we're just going to go away. It's, you know, we got demonetized on YouTube a long, long time ago. So we rely pretty much from support from you guys now. So if you are, you know, seeing me for the first time, or you haven't already, please, you know, click the link to my website. Please click the link on TikTok. If you're on TikTok, click the link to my my profile, and you'll see a link tree. You click that link tree, you'll have links to my Twitter, my YouTube, my Rockfin, my Rumble, my website, etc. You can subscribe to me on them all. And then if I do get booted off TikTok at some stage, you'll know, you know, we can still have a conversation. All right. Go to the next, set up the next thing. All right. A super chat, didn't I? Thank you very much to Chuck K. Thanks very much. Number 1 fan. Oh, bless. Thank you very much. That's very kind. And anybody who's tipped me on TikTok, thanks a lot. All right, everybody. You probably saw this, and if you hadn't, I'm going to show it you now. This is Joe Biden saying that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal.
Oh, I think he is a war criminal.
Will you be meeting with him?
So did you see that? He said, "Did you ask me?" He went back and said, "Did you ask me if he was a war criminal?" And she repeated the question then. He said, "Oh, yes, he's a war criminal." I feel as if this was staged. I feel as if, we'll watch it again, but I feel as if it was done on purpose. Watch. See, you can see it says there, "Did you ask me whether he was a war criminal? And if Putin was a war criminal?" And then she asked it, and then this person asked it again. So she's obviously asked him and he ignored it. Whether somebody got in his ear then and said, "Go back and say it." It's, you know, give him something to talk about. Take a listen.
Oh, I think he is a war criminal.
Will you be meeting with him?
I mean, this is what I think of that. Another Spider-Man. This is not helpful rhetoric, obviously, from Biden. And like I say, it does, to me at least, look like he did that on purpose, knowing what sort of reaction it was going to get from Russia. This is not helpful. This is decorum out the window. And it's escalating the conflict instead of bringing it down. And you have to ask, why is he trying to escalate this conflict? Why is he trying to... If he wants an end to the war, why isn't he concentrating on de-escalating it? Why is he now calling Putin a war criminal? Détente is required here, but first of all, I'd like to point something out to everybody who thinks that this is Vladimir Putin and Putin is a war criminal here. What is happening in Ukraine is not Putin's doing. It's not a red line for Putin. what's happening in Ukraine. It's a red line for Russia and all Russians, or most of. This expansion of NATO to Russia's border, it has been said for a decade by experts or more that we're going to end up in a situation that we've got right now. Here's somebody that's been right about this all along, John Mearsheimer. I've already showed one of his videos that from 2015, I think it was, explaining, no, this is what's going to happen. Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And here he is talking to Michael McFaul, who, by the way, if you don't know who Michael McFaul is, he's an ambassador over in America. One of the American ambassadors. He's not voted in. He's one of those people who gets a job and he's in positions of power, but nobody actually votes for him. And he's wrong on everything. He's the biggest Russiagator there was. And here he is getting schooled by John Mearsheimer in 2014. This is 4 minutes and 49 seconds. Take a listen. You tell me whether what's gone on in Ukraine, whether they're actually escalating it on purpose here. And you tell me who's at fault.
Let me make my point. The fact is that when you're dealing with great power politics and you have a country like Russia, it does not make good sense to talk about rights. It's the same thing when you're dealing with the United States of America. If you think Cuba has a right to invite the Soviets into the Western Hemisphere, you're living in a dream world. Fidel Castro has been in power since 1959. We still have a huge embargo on Cuba because they had the audacity to invite the Soviets into the Western Hemisphere. This is the Monroe Doctrine that you mentioned before. We do not tolerate great powers coming into our neighborhood. Why do you expect that the Russians should accept the idea that NATO, a former military foe, can drive its alliance right up to its doorstep? It can't in the Russians' eyes. Great power politics, international law, all those things go out the window when a great power thinks that its core interests are at stake. Do you think we paid attention to international law when we went into Iraq in 2003? Foolishly, I might add. We violated international law because George Bush said explicitly that he thought core strategic interests of the United States were at stake. And that's what's going on with Ukraine.
And it really worked out good for the U.S.
And the key point that you want to keep in mind
was
here...
Was that good for the U.S., is the question?
No, of course it wasn't.
So why is it good for Russia?
Pardon?
So why is it good for Russia to do the same in Ukraine?
Because
I have this debate every night on Twitter with my Russian friends. Well, what about Iraq? And I say, if you were for the invasion of Iraq, then I can understand why you would support invasion of Ukraine. But
no, I'll answer your question. Critical strategic interests were not at stake in Iraq for the United States. There was no good strategic reason for us to intervene. Furthermore, we were guaranteed to lose, as we have proved. Ukraine is a fundamentally different situation. This is a core strategic interest of Russia.
How does the fact that Baltic states are now in NATO and the EU, how does that impinge on core Russian strategic interests? How?
As Dmitry said, Ukraine is of enormous importance to the Russians. We got away with the first two tranches of NATO expansion. The second one included the Baltic states because the Russians were very weak and not in a position to contest us. But they made it clear after April 2008, this is at the Bucharest summer when we announced that Ukraine and Georgia would become part of NATO, that this was just unacceptable. It was a bridge too far. And as I said before, that's why you got the August 2008 war, and that's why you have the present crisis.
But without it, Putin might well be in Vilnius now.
What does that mean?
Well, without the expansion of NATO, without Article 5,
he would not be.
Wouldn't President Putin be back in Vilnius
now? Putin showed zero interest in conquering Crimea before the February 22nd coup. And in fact, if you look at what he was saying immediately after the coup, he was not even talking about taking Crimea. In fact, he was saying that he wouldn't take Crimea. There is no evidence that anybody in the West, including the intelligence community, thought that Putin was an expansionist and was about to go on an aggressive rampage. No evidence of that. It was the February 22nd coup that precipitated that. And all he took was the Crimea, which was picking off the low-hanging fruit. He is not stupid enough to go into Ukraine or to go into Vilnius or pick a fight with NATO. This is a smart...
Yeah, but that's because they're in NATO.
That's correct. That's correct.
So, why shouldn't the Ukrainians want the same guarantee?
He's not going to let them in. That's the point. He has made it very clear that Ukraine cannot get into NATO. And what's going to happen here is that if we pursue the policies that you're advocating, we're going to wreck Ukraine. The United States is leading the Ukrainians down the primrose path, telling them that they have a right to choose which alliance they want to join. This is asking for big trouble, and this is what Putin is doing. He's wrecking Ukraine. We'd be much better off if we created a neutral Ukraine. We said NATO expansion is off the table, and to the extent that we extended the EU eastward, we did it in conjunction with the IMF, the Russians, and the American government, and we worked out some sort of grand economic package. But the idea that you're going to turn this place into a bulwark of the West right on the Russian border with Putin in control, it's not going to happen, no matter what the Americans on the panel think. That's
me, I guess. You guys!
Where's his voice now? You know? Where's his voice now? Well, of course, he ended up getting smeared as an anti-Semite because he wrote something about the Israel lobby. Seen him for a few years. But that was 2014. Everything he said there was played out. Everything. And you've got Michael McFaul there on that panel, who even now is still saying the same things he was back then. They knew this was going to happen, and they took every single step that they needed to take to push Russia into doing this. It was provoked. There's no doubt about it. Does that mean that I'm defending Vladimir Putin and Russia? No, of course not. And this is as ridiculous as it's getting now. People like me who are anti-war. I'm anti-war. No matter what war is going on, I'm anti it. People like me are having to, every stream and every video started off with, I mean, listen to Russell Brand's videos now. Every single video he does about Ukraine, he's like, listen, I think Putin's a bad guy. I'm not defending Vladimir Putin. I think what Russia have done is bad, okay? But, I know that's how ridiculous it is. You have to make that caveat every video now, otherwise you get called a Putin buddy. It's ridiculous, it really is. But you see there, you have to ask, did the United States provoke this? Did the United States and NATO, let's face it, United States is NATO. They're 2/3 of the NATO spending for a start. Did they provoke this? And because if this was predicted back then, 2014, and as far back as 2008 I've seen, why did the US and NATO still take every step and every course of action that they could to provoke it? And you have to ask, if that's the case, why is it that our legacy media and the people that the people that of this country get their information from, why is it that they're not presenting this information? Of course, because they're only presenting one side of the story. Just, the first half of Cinderella, where Cinderella has a nice time and goes to the ball. Not the second half of the Cinderella with Prince Charming and his foot fetish. Weirdo. Why keep escalating this, Joe? Why keep escalating it? Why say you're a war criminal? Why? Do we need to point fingers back at you? Because you know that's what I'm going to do now. Remember, Joe Biden is calling Vladimir Putin a war criminal right now, whilst at the same time prosecuting Julian Assange and getting the UK to torture him in our Belmarsh prison, where he's been for over 1,000 days, having committed no crime whatsoever in this country, and for 7 years being arbitrarily detained before it. Why? Because he, more than any publication, or rather all publications put together, He, with his WikiLeaks organization, reported on more war crimes that Joe Biden's administration, with Barack Obama and all of the other administrations, the Bush, etc., they reported more of American war crimes than the entire media combined in its history. And you're torturing him in a supermax prison right now and prosecuting him to the full extent of the law and even making up laws to get him there. You can point your fingers at Vladimir Putin all you want and call him a war criminal. It's not going to detract from the fact that the person who exposed more of your war crimes than any publication and all publications combined in their history is currently in jail, and you're torturing him. Who's the war criminal now, Joe? Hey? Who's the criminal? If the people who tell the truth and the people who expose war crimes are thrown in jail and tortured for a decade, what are you? That's why I do this. That's what I mean. I'm not defending anything that Putin is doing or Russia are doing at all. I'm pointing the finger back at the people pointing the fingers and saying, what? You're in a giant glass house and you're chucking stones all over the place. Flush your own feces before you try telling other houses what they need to do to keep their shit clean. I'm just looking on the Restream chat here. I've got no messages coming up on the Restream chat from Rockfin or Rumble. I'm very sorry about that. If you are on Rockfin or Rumble and you've sent any tips or you've sent any messages and I haven't seen them, I do apologise. I will go over to there and have a look actually at the end of this. Let me write a message. Give myself a reminder. I think I've only got one or two things really I want to talk about now. Next rather. So this. Oh, I should have really put that up. Yeah. Okay. We have to talk about this little video from CNN. If you haven't seen this, what I'm about to show you is going to turn your stomach. They're talking about Ukraine here. And this woman, something Joffe, or I don't know her name. Well, listen to what she says. They're talking about Ukraine. Just listen to this.
Operation. So what is NATO going to do if, it's one thing for sarin gas to be used on people in faraway Syria who are Muslim and who are of a different culture. What is Europe going to do when it's on European soil, done to Europeans?
Did you hear that? It's one thing when these she's talking about major possible chemical weapons here. Something else I can't talk about on TikTok, by the way. It's something else I got banned for. About documents that, well, prove the United States were funding biological research laboratories in Ukraine. Not good enough. TikTok banned me 3 days. That was the last time. But she's saying there that Syria, it's not like, what happens if a chemical weapons attack happens in Ukraine? It's not like in Syria where they're all Muslim. It's far away. This is closer to home. I'll play the game for you. Let me know. But terrible this is if you ask me.
So what is NATO going to do if, it's one thing for sarin gas to be used on people in faraway Syria who are Muslim and who are of a different culture. What is Europe going to do when it's on European soil, done to Europeans? Are they going to intervene? Are they going to keep standing back? And if they do intervene, how far are they willing to go? And are they willing to have a direct confrontation with Vladimir Putin, which is what he seems to want?
She exposes her bigotry and hypocrisy there in the first sentence. Just listen to what she says.
So what is NATO going to do if, it's one thing for sarin gas to be used on people in faraway Syria who are Muslim and who...
It's one thing for sarin gas to be used in faraway Syria where everybody's Muslim. Okay. First of all, she mentioned sarin gas there. Now, she's talking obviously about, I would think, Duma. Now, I've done plenty of videos about the alleged chemical weapons attack in Duma. There are many OPCW whistleblowers that have come forward to say that actually the narrative that we've been given on Duma is nothing close to the. There are many whistleblowers that have come forward. And indeed, although the White House said it was sarin originally, and I've got the cutout that proves that they said it was sarin, it ended up that they had to backtrack on that and ended up having to say chlorine. Because the narrative that they spun was destroyed. So the first thing she said there, the sarin, well, the last time they said that happened, it wasn't that at all. And then the next thing there, Syria, where everybody's Muslim. Listen to what she said.
Culture. What are going to do if, it's one thing for sarin gas to be used on people in faraway Syria who are Muslim and who...
For people who, in faraway Syria who are Muslim. How idiotic do you need to be? How much of a propagandist idiot do you need to be? How much of an uninformed bigot do you need to be reporting on a news channel and to be a contributor to a news channel talking about war, where there's been a war in Syria now for 8 years almost going on, and you don't know that Syria is a secular country with Jews and Muslims and atheists and Christians and all sorts of religions living peacefully. At least they were, until the United States decided it wanted some regime change with Operation Timber Sycamore. Go look it up. There's even a Wikipedia page for that. But how disgusting is this sort of rhetoric? And also, if you listen to her words there, doesn't that sound like a bit of a threat? Well, it's one thing for people, chemical weapons being used all the way over there on those brown people, but what if it happens back closer to home, eh? What's she going to do then? Listen to the rhetoric. Listen to what she said. It's like the mafia are talking.
So what is NATO going to do if, it's one thing for sarin gas to be used on people in faraway Syria who are Muslim and who are of a different culture?
She nearly said colour then, didn't she? She nearly said colour then, didn't she?
Who are Muslim and who are of a different culture. What is Europe going to do when it's on European soil, done to Europeans?
You can see here they're just on CNN. They are desperately trying to figure out ways that they can turn this proxy war in Ukraine into a hot war. Nothing gets them harder on CNN panels than that. CNN, sponsored by Raytheon and Boeing and Pfizer. And the other thing that she said here was she blamed it all on Putin, of course, and this is something that they're doing a lot, I've noticed in the media, trying to make out that Putin is a crazy and he's mad. What's happening over there is a red line for Russia, not Putin, as I have explained.
Are they going to intervene? Are they going to keep standing back? And if they do intervene, how far are they willing to go? And are they willing to have a direct confrontation with Vladimir Putin, which is what he...
Direct confrontation with Putin. It's always Putin, isn't it? This is Russia that the NATO expansion is a red line for. Not Putin, Russia. And if the roles were reversed, it would be a red line for America, wouldn't it? No, you don't think so? We don't have to hypothesize on that. We know it would be a red line. Because the exact same thing happened with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Do you remember? When Russia wanted to put missiles in Cuba? It was nearly World War III back then. And oh, by the way, why did Russia want to put missiles in Cuba. Oh, that's right, because America put missiles in Turkey and Italy. They miss that out of the story, don't they? I bet those TikTok influencers, if they were getting those marching orders from White House, that part of the story would be missed out. It would be left to people like me to inform you. And of course, TikTok would then ban me for integrity and authenticity. This is disgusting. This woman needs to be, well, educated, I think is the word. And she certainly shouldn't be, you know, the foremost expert on what's going on in Ukraine. People like that are allowed on CNN, but they won't let Glenn Greenwald or Chris Hedges anywhere near it. What does that tell you? It is the most disgusting, despicable purveyor of fake news on the planet. And they never face sanction, do they? Their videos are never taken down. Vile organisation, a vile organisation that honestly the world, the entire world would be better off without. Especially racist, bigoted pieces of work like that. Muslim, secular, you racist crap. This was something that happened yesterday, I think it was. There's been an apology in the Telegraph from Ian Austin to Laura Murray. From Ian Austin and the Telegraph to Laura Murray. I want to read it to you. Laura Murray is from Labour. You'll get the gist. In an article, they say, quote, Rachel Riley deserves every bit of compensation for the hard left abuse she's endured in 2021, written by Ian Austin. So, or is it Sir Lord Ian Austin now? We suggested that Laura Murray, a former staff member at the Labour Party, was, quote, an anti-Jewish racist and part of the vile anti-Semitism of Corbyn's Labour, who had been stood up to by Rachel Riley during a recent court case. These allegations were and are untrue. So he makes false allegations and smears, does Ian Austin. And he does this quite often. It continues, we accept that there was no basis to suggest that Miss Murray is anti-Semitic. On the contrary, the court heard in unchallenged evidence that Miss Murray devoted significant time and energy to confronting and challenging anti-Semitism within the Labour Party while she was employed there. The Telegraph and Ian Austin apologised to Miss Murray. We have agreed to pay her substantial damages. I hope that she does a lot of good with that money. Outlets like the Telegraph and people like Ian Austin who have weaponised anti-Semitism and weaponised racism to further their own ideological means and ideological aims, and the platforms that platform them, the newspapers that allow them to write their bile and their hate and their hateful rhetoric, do actual victims of racism the world over a disservice. Because what they're doing is minimising racism, actual racism. They're making false allegations of racism against people. Ruining careers, entire careers. Careers like my mate Chris Williamson. Lifelong Labour member. 2 times serving Derby MP. On the council for decades, going back to the 70s. A proper true socialist, not a single racist bone in his body. Honestly, one of the most decent people I have ever met. His career ruined and wrecked by lies spread on platforms like the Telegraph, who said that he said Labour had apologised too much for anti-Semitism. And if you go back and watch the video of that, of what he said in that meeting, He said none. No such thing. None at all. But every outlet, like the Telegraph and the BBC at the time, said that he'd said they'd apologised too much for anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and that is not what he said at all. They ruined his career. Meanwhile, actual racism goes on in the Labour Party as well. It's really there. But when you are trying to make out that lifelong anti-racists like Jeremy Corbyn are somehow a raging racist who hates the Jews, then you are doing Jews a disservice. Because it's got to the stage now where you've charged people and you've said that so many people who are clearly not racist are anti-Semitic racists that the word has lost all meaning. Now when you call somebody an anti-Semitic, it's like, oh, did he say something about Israel, did he? Ugh. There's real anti-Semitism out there. And now people think every charge or most charges of anti-Semitism are false. Because people like Austin and the Telegraph have made false allegations against people who have spent their entire careers fighting anti-Semitism. I don't know why Lord Austin became a lord. I don't know what makes him so fantastic that he gets to sit there and ponce around and get public money and do all God knows what. But it needs changing. People who weaponize racism and rape in the case of other people do a disservice to real victims of racism and rape. They are actually hurting the very people that they say they're on a quest to help. Ian Austin and the Telegraph should hang their heads in shame and should really think about who it is that they serve. Do they serve the people of this country? Or do they serve entities elsewhere? Foreign entities. Because there's a word for that. It's called being a traitor. It's called treason. That poor woman, Laura Murray, that poor woman, having to endure that. And as for Rachel Riley, damn. Bring back Carol Vorderman. Please, Carol, come back. All right, that's it for tonight, everybody. That's all of the stuff I have to talk about tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, everybody, as much as I did. I really do enjoy these live streams. I really do. Let me just check out Rockfin and Rumble. Make sure I haven't missed anything. At least I'm going live on Rockfin now, and I figured that out. That's all of the stuff. There we go. Rumble. Right. Nothing there. All right, everybody. There's a couple of things I'll talk about lastly that's on my Twitter feed that that you might be interested in. First things first, this is Julian Assange. This is what he says about war.
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough, if they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
That's why I do what I do. Because populations don't like wars and they have to be propagandized into them. And that's happening right now. And we have to resist it. The rate at which civilians were killed invading US-led forces in the 21 days from 20th of March to 9th of April, invasion to the fall of Baghdad, was 315 today. So high compared to the following 2-year period, it could not fit in the same intensity graph. Yeah. I don't know about any of these stats that are coming out of Ukraine. My experience, statistics coming out during wartime are never even close. Here's Julian's dad, John Simpson. I'll end on this, I think. He's outside the Nobel Prize building, the Alfred Nobel building. Julian Assange has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, I think 11 times now, is it? I know it was 9 a couple of years ago, and I think he's been nominated 2 years since then. This is what Julian's dad has to say about this. It's kind of a joke when you think that Julian's been nominated 11 times and never got it, but Barack Obama did, and he had a kill list. And so did and Henry Kissinger obviously got it as well. This is what John Shipton.
Okay, here we are outside the Nobel Institute. And there's the great man himself standing in the background. As you can see, they spell his name Nobel, which they spelled it incorrectly. It should be Noble. So when we go inside, and they're going to give us a small tour and a lecture on the founder and his, what do you call it, requirements for the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, just a friend of ours here, Professor Frederick Heffermel, is a constant enemy, well, constant critic, rather, of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee in the Parliament, because he says they're always giving the prize to CIA cutouts and war criminals, which after Kissinger and Obama and the last two journalists who had interesting credentials, is probably accurate. And also that those that are nominated and they're kept secret for 50 years. So after 50 years you can find out who was nominated by whom. Well, this sort of secrecy is not conducive to good prize giving, so to speak.
No, it's not. It's not. I love that man. I probably do. He's a proper good guy. This is Alan McLeod, by the way. If you don't follow Alan McLeod, please do on Twitter. He's great. You stopped following me though. Why are you stopping following me, Alan? Don't you love me no more? I still love you anyway, even if you don't love me. This is November 2021 for you on TikTok. I'll probably do a little video about this. So November 2021, this is a headline in the Daily Hateful Mail. Is it any wonder they'll risk their lives to get here? Migrants can expect £40 a week cash, free mobiles, 4-star hotels, and lawyers to help their asylum applications, writes David Barrett. That was back in November 2021, when the asylum seekers were, mostly brown from Syria. Muslim country, as that lady from CNN said. This is March 2022, how the rhetoric changed when all of a sudden the migrants were white. Quote, meet the kind-hearted male readers ready to give sanctuary To Ukrainians fleeing war after Michael Gove says millions of Britons could be willing to accept refugees with £350 a month government thank yous. Personally, I think if you want to help refugees, the first thing you should do is stop creating them with stupid wars based upon lies for profit. What do you think, everybody? Okay, that's it. I'm out. I'm done for the week, I think. Please subscribe to me on wherever. I'm on Rockfin, Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. If you're on TikTok, go to my bio, go to my profile page, click the link tree, and you can subscribe to all the links there. I don't know how long I'm going to be around on TikTok, although I've got a couple of questions here. Talk about the documentary Winter on Fire, says Philippe Ribeiro. I don't know that one. Winter on Fire. Do you mean Ukraine on fire, Philippe Ribeiro? Yeah, do you mean Ukraine on fire? That's the Oliver Stone video. Yeah, the Ukraine on fire. You should watch if you haven't. It's not on YouTube anymore. YouTube deleted it. They said it broke their rules. Obviously, they broke their rules of flying in the face of government propaganda and proving that everything they're saying is wrong. It is on Rumble and Rumble though. Yeah, it's on Rumble. The director, one of the writers, directors, whatever it is, has uploaded to Rumble and you go watch it there. So if you haven't watched Ukraine on Fire, go and watch it on Rumble. It's free to watch, and it will really give you some background into what is going on over there. I know a lot of people in my comment section on TikTok say a lot of people, some people charge me with saying I've got my own bias and I'm biased. I'm an antidote almost to what, you know, if the mainstream media weren't giving you the information they were giving you, I would give you that too if it was correct. It's just that most of what I do is just trying to balance things out and give you and fill in the gaps of information that people don't have. That's really all it is. If that comes off biased, then you'll have to accept my apologies and just understand that that's not. All right, everybody. Are you going to be on Odyssey, says SDS? I tried, but they stopped replying to my emails, so I just gave up. I wanted some tech support from them, and the person I was emailed they ignored me. So I didn't go on there. I didn't bother. I'm on Rockfin and Rumble. You know, I don't think they're going to be going away soon. So maybe I'll upload the back catalogue to Odyssey at some stage, but it'll probably take me some time. All right, everybody. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for your support, all your support. If you don't already, go through to the website, find out ways you can support me. You can do it for as little as £1 or $1 a month, whatever you can afford. And I really appreciate it. If just 1 in 10 of you did that, you know, you'd be supporting me and keeping the lights on, etc. So I could continue doing this on whatever platform if I do get banned from TikTok. Thanks very much to everybody who's tuned in. I'll be back probably over the weekend. I'll say I'm done for the week, but I'll probably do a live. I'll certainly do some TikTok videos. That's if I'm allowed to. All right, take care, everybody. I love you all. Support independent media. Free Julian Assange. My little dog just said, just heard me saying goodbye to you all, so she's come to say goodbye. You kiss. You kiss. You kiss. All right. Bye from me. Bye from Ellie. Take care, everyone. Love you all.